read, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it. I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, it was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with. Your organization's terrible. Your organization's terrible. Let's go. Go ahead. Quiet. Quiet. Go ahead. She's asking a question. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news.
Wow, and that's how we start off the presidential reality show. Really, I mean, new reality show, which took place yesterday. I've never seen anything like that. Never seen anything like that. Welcome to the extended version of 15 Minutes of Flame. Take two. Had a bit of a technical glitch, i.e. my brain, as I forgot to hit the unmute button at the start of the show. You know, I want to be so seamless. It's like, here, listen to the music. Get into the music that some people don't like and some people like. And let me mute this because, you know, I'm doing something else and I don't want the clicking of the keys. Last night I was watching this. It's amazing how many shows Jim Fetzer is on. I mean, this guy is doing a show like every hour on the hour, and he's saying the same thing in every show, and he's regurgitating a lot of stuff that everybody else already knows. The problem with being a constant guest and being somebody who has a constant opinion is that there's very little time to have things ferment and have a deep and original take on what's going on. Because a lot of this right now is just an echo chamber. And I was watching this show, it was like high energy radio. It was this woman who had this thing going on with Fetzer and Jim Mars, and you could see her, and you could see Fetzer, and you could see Mars, and they're talking back and forth. And she's supposed to be interviewing the two of them, and what you see and hear is her like tapping on her keys. And I'm like, what is this? Is she the host of the show? Is she texting with people on Twitter or Facebook? What is going on here? It was a bizarre thing. So I'm conscious about the sound sometimes, which is why I muted at the beginning of the show in the last hour, and I went through the whole show, and unfortunately didn't take. So welcome to the Shadow Mercury retrograde, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Flame, and welcome to the reality show that is the Donald Trump presidency. We're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about what's happening. So much is going on. Man, we are in a period of compression like no other. It is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. We're going to be like doing our best to keep up with everything. This is how kind of, and I think in a good way, how unhinged things have become. I mean, I can sit here for the next 3 hours and just talk about what's going on. From Meryl Streep's speech to what happened yesterday to what's happening right now in the confirmation hearings of Trump's cabinet, we are seeing things that we have never witnessed. I've never seen a president do that. And what's really interesting is the way he came across to the CNN guy. You're being rude, you're being rude, you're being rude. Now, some people will say, well, Donald Trump is rude. Donald Trump is this, he's that. There's a lot of projection that goes on with Trump. But what he was being in that moment was, first of all, he was being a Gemini. Because he got into that granular detail about Michael Cohen. And we saw this side of Trump during the first debate. And this is why I think Trump is, for the most part, legit. Because you're not getting a script. You're not getting the teleprompter president. I have a dear Facebook friend, love her to death. And she, the other day, was talking about how much she's going to miss the most articulate, sophisticated, urbane president ever. And we're going to have to deal with Mr. Potty Mouth, Mush Mouth, Donald Trump. Of course, she's referring to Barack Obama. Look, just because a person can be articulate, just because they can string together some sentences, have the right cadences, be able to kind of flip your switches from a neuro-linguistic programming perspective, does not make them good. It does not make them truthful. I would be much more suspicious of somebody who is incredibly articulate and fluid and versus somebody who is kind of at times struggling to communicate, or at the very least communicates what they say in a very direct, brusque, and at times gruff manner. I'll take that person all the time because you're getting something that's uncensored and unfiltered, which is completely, I mean, Donald Trump is like moonshine. He's like moonshine. You're getting, you're fermenting this corn and whatever else they're putting it, and bang, it's, it's 110 proof or whatever, and it's in a jar. What you're not getting is, 15-year-old scotch, which is, or you're getting triple distilled vodka. Triple distilled vodka, filtered 3 times. That's Obama. Trump is moonshine. And that press conference, that moment was remarkable. I've never seen a president, any other president will allude to things. Obama was the master of illusion and illusion. There's no illusion with Trump. He's getting granular. He's getting right into those details. He told the story about wanting to see Michael Cohen's passport. Do you think that was made up? That wasn't made up at all. Trump called the guy to his office, said, I want to see your passport. I want to see if you've been to Hungary. We saw this in the first debate with Hillary, where he felt like he had to answer every single thing, which is a very Gemini kind of thing. You had Hillary's Jupiter and Sagittarius versus Trump's Sun and Uranus and Gemini, basically facing off. The broad stroke versus sort of the minute detail. Trump was fascinating yesterday. He talked about being in hotel rooms. And you have to be very careful because there's cameras everywhere. And then he tells people he's a germaphobe, and he smiles. When have we had this kind of disclosure from anybody? I'm telling you, this is going to be so fascinating. I hope he lives. I hope we see him for the next 4 years. I want a front row seat for this. We are in for grand theater, something we've never seen before. And you may hate the guy. You may be one of these people that think he's not fit to be president. Well, who is fit to be president? Was George Bush fit to be president? He was the son of a member of Skull and Bones. He was a member of Skull and Bones himself. He was promoted. He ran a baseball team that was given to him. He was the governor of Texas and did a shitty job. Again, given to him. Silver spoon fed from the jump. Did that make him fit to be president? Was he qualified? What about Barack Obama? Was he qualified? Look at his record. He was barely a senator. He was barely a state senator from Illinois. He was barely a council member. He never voted on anything. Go back into his college records. Where's his grades? Where's his great papers? Where's his great thesis? He was the editor of a paper of a law review, and he never wrote anything. What was his qualifications? His qualifications are that he learned how to be a community organizer, a shit disturber, an acolyte of Saul Alinsky. Those are his qualifications. He's eminently qualified to be president. There's nothing there. What about Bill Clinton? Was he qualified? He ran a corrupt state government in Arkansas. So corrupt that if you were to take time and just peel back the layers, you'd be shocked. You'd say to yourself, how the hell did this guy get elected? How was he promoted? He was kicked out of Oxford for being, he was a Rhodes Scholar. Oh, yeah, he was a Rhodes Scholar. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He was kicked out of Oxford. He was kicked out of Oxford because apparently he sexually assaulted a student there. Qualified? There's a picture of him with John Kennedy when he was young. Does that qualify him? What about Ronald Reagan? At least Ronald Reagan was the president or something. I'm not a Reagan guy. A lot of people, they bow at the temple of Reagan. I couldn't stand Reagan. I didn't like Reagan. I didn't like anything the Reagan administration stood for. I didn't like it. I mean, it's supposedly this was a great period of American history, and what did we get out of the Reagan era? Greed is good. Conspicuous consumption. Conflated values. The rise of cocaine. Iran-Contra. So much bad about, we had the fall. Great, it was the fall. That was scheduled to go anyway. They were on the clock. But, it happened. Made a few moves. But at least Reagan was president of something. He was president of the Screen Actors Guild. Reagan was governor of California. Reagan was qualified. A lot of people say, well, he was an actor. The dude was the governor of California for, 2 or 3 terms? Reagan was qualified. Reagan knew politics. He was such a political animal. He used the McCarthy era and the McCarthy hearings to elevate himself. Reagan, I have to say, was qualified. Clinton was governor, but he was a moonshining, bootlicking. No, not a bootlicking. He was a moonshining governor. Anything goes, and it did. And he was essentially promoted for his active participation in a corrupt state government, along with his wife. But don't tell me that Barack Obama was more qualified than Donald Trump. Don't even tell me that George H.W. Bush was more qualified. Just because he was governor, he did a shitty job. And everything was handed to him. Didn't really have to work a day in his life. He wasn't qualified. And once he got in, Dick Cheney and Don Rumsfeld and the neocons ran everything. Never have I ever seen a president do that. How many people in the United States or in the world would have loved to be in that position and just shut that guy down and said, you're being rude, you're fake news. He called up, if I'm BuzzFeed, I'm sitting around right now and I'm thinking we are skating on very thin ice. Because I guarantee you, once Trump is sworn in, and I really hope he's sworn in, I want to see this. I want to see how the Democrats, the social Marxists, the globalists, I want to see how all these people align themselves. I mean, we are in the great conflagration of our time. This is it, man. We are staring down the nexus of good and evil. And I don't care if people say Trump is an Israel firster, he's a Shabbat Lubavitcher. I don't care. Because I think those things, while they might be true, I think they are tangential to Donald Trump. That's what I think. Illuminati high priest, thinking himself as the reincarnation of Apollo. I don't care. I want to see this. I was watching, by the way, I was in the hospital yesterday. And I'm just getting back on my feet, and it was a real wake-up call. I'm going to talk about that experience. But I was watching in the hospital yesterday, Dan Le Batard who I really like. Dan Le Batard is a writer. He does a radio show. He's got a TV show. He lives down in Miami. He's a cool guy. If there's a guy I'd ever want to hang out with and party with, it's Dan Le Batard. And he's, his brother's an artist. He's an immigrant, son of an immigrant. Brother's a pretty well-known artist. And he's anti-Trump. He's not a Trump guy. But what he did yesterday on his show is he called out this whole thing with CNN and Buzz. He said that that story should never have seen the light of day. Never. Ever. And he decried the state of journalism in this country. He was just calling it like it is. And he's absolutely right. Now, some people may say, well, that, maybe Trump planted that story. I don't know. We are living in such an incredibly bizarre, strange, fantastic time that we can't necessarily rule anything like that out. But when you watch him talk about Michael Cohen and checking his passport, it's like you can't script that stuff. You just can't. I mean, the way it would have gone with Obama. First of all, Obama wouldn't have had the feeding frenzy that took place. That was a feeding frenzy. I mean, there were piranhas. The press were piranhas. And he just wanted to tear at his flesh, right? You wouldn't see that with Obama for a number of reasons. Number one, I hate to say it, but being a PC president, if you took on I never realized this early on, but there were people who were, kind of coming at Obama early on, and I kind of stayed away from it, not because I didn't want to. I mean, I've done a lot of posts about Obama, but I didn't want to give him any energy, to be honest with you. I didn't want to give him any energy because I didn't like what was going on. I didn't dig it. But I knew people that were Democrats, and they were questioning Obama. They were shut down as being racist. It was like he had, for better or worse, this kind of, he was untouchable. He was untouchable. He was like this cross between a Brahmin and an Avatar. He was unassailable on any level because he was too cool. He was too kind of down and street, and if you went after any of his policies, you were being a racist. And for the 8 years, like when I saw Bush, whom I did not like at all, he made my stomach turn. When I saw Bush for that period of time, or no, I saw Obama over those 8 years, I never really saw any kind of give and take with the press corps. I didn't see that. Obama was so scripted. And what you're going to get with Trump is totally unscripted. It's raw and it's unfiltered, and I'm so digging it. On the other side, Trump is saying, he says, I don't have any problems with Russia. How about having a good relationship? Wouldn't that be an asset? I mean, hello? Of course it'd be an asset. But then he says, I may not like him. I don't know. We have to wait and see. I mean, it's like, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to pin Trump, and on the other side, with these confirmation hearings, they're trying to pin everybody to a board like they're a moth in a moth collection, pinning their wings. They're saying, well, they're trying to get them on record about Russia. Well, don't you feel this, and don't you feel this, and don't you feel this? And of course, these guys want to be confirmed. And they probably got their legs and toes crossed underneath the desk, and maybe one finger crossed, saying, yeah, sure, yeah. Oh, yeah, we'll do this and we'll do that, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, meanwhile, they're really thinking, why the fuck do I have to answer this question? Let me get on with my job, because really all you're doing is, one, promoting a false narrative, and two, basically grandstanding like Cory Booker, who's trying to become the president of the United States either in 4 or 8 years. So they're trying to create and have these aha moments. Like if we go down the line or we move into the future by about 12 months, a year, and something comes up, and whether it's Tillerson or whether it's Sessions or whoever it is, and they say something or do something that actually makes a lot of sense, but is counter to what they said during the confirmation hearings, what do you think you're going to see? Oh, you're going to see an unending reel of the confirmation hearings. What happened when he said this? What happened when she said this? What happened when they said this? They are pre-programming the gotcha moments while trying to frame their agenda and their mandate right here, right now, inside of those confirmation hearings. That didn't really happen with Obama. You didn't get that same kind of aggression. And for all the people that think that Obama was blocked at every single turn by the Republicans, you are sadly mistaken. They were on board with just about everything, for the most part, with the exception of the immigration piece. Obama got Obamacare. Are you kidding me? He got Obamacare. A Republican, heavy Republican, he got it. He got what he wanted. Well, that was when the houses were split, right? That's right. He got what he wanted. He got his wars. He got his incursions. He got to bring thousands and thousands of refugees over. He expanded the wars. The military-industrial complex loved him. John Boehner loved him. Paul Ryan seems to really love him. McCain loves him. They all loved him. I didn't see any hard blowback. He got almost everything he wanted. And right now we're at war, and we're going to see this happen for the next 4 years. The forces of globalism, the forces of internationalism, the forces of a one world order, the forces of a dystopian Orwellian global system of control are aligned against Donald Trump. And I believe that. Now, I've been ranting about Anthony Sutton lately. And you can find his recordings with Elizabeth Clare Prophet, which are completely bizarre. Because Elizabeth Clare Prophet, I've talked about this before, she was the wife of Mark Prophet, who was one of the people inside of the I Am Church that came out of Mount Shasta, all about ascended masters, all that stuff, right? And she's got her Summit University, Summit Lighthouse Press, her compound in Montana, and she's basically getting people ready for the end of the world while doing her best to enlighten them and keep them in touch with the spirit of freedom. And she comes across Anthony Sutton, a guy who was British. He was a professor at Stanford. He was an academician, and he winds up writing a book about skull and bones, and he finds out what's really happening in the world and who's behind the corridors of power. And he eventually leaves academia, and he has these great talks with Elizabeth Clare Prophet. They're incredible. Go to a website called The Rape of Justice. Not a website, YouTube channel, Rape of Justice. You'll find some other interesting stuff there. It may not agree with everything that you think or believe in, but that's okay. We're involved in the free expression of ideas. That's where we are. Or at least we hope to be. So Anthony Sutton talks about how the left and the right are part of the Hegelian dialectic. And he was exposing the Hegelian dialectic while David Icke was still a soccer player. When you listen to David Icke, you realize that he's read everything by Anthony Sutton. Because it's Icke that popularizes this notion of the Hegelian dialectic. So you have thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And Sutton talked about how when he looked at the membership of the Skull and Bones, he saw that it was kind of split down the middle. I mean, even look at John Kerry and George Bush. This is the most recent example of how Skull and Bones operates, which is really kind of this this appendage of the international elites and these bloodline families that want to run the planet. You had Bush on the right, you had Kerry on the left, and it was explicitly Skull and Bones. There's your Hegelian dialectic right there. The supposed right and the supposed left. And what they're doing is creating this sense of disjunction and a sense of polarity, a sense of duality. And in all these cases, you're able to run many different programs, so you're able to further agendas, whether they're assassinations, eliminations, false flags, regime changes, fake news, fake assassinations. Now we've got a new movie out, Patriots Day. Mark Wahlberg, keep your eye on Mark Wahlberg, Gemini, by the way. He's done 2 films now that are basically kind of sugarcoating what's happened in terms of 2 significant events. We had the explosion of the BP oil well in the Gulf, which he plays this, again, very kind of dramatized role around the heroic actions of what took place at the Macondo well. And he's also playing an officer, a police officer in Patriots Day, which is all about the Boston Marathon bombings, which was completely fake. And now we have a movie legitimizing the fake aspect, the artificial and synthetic aspect of what happened during the Boston Marathon bombings. This is exactly, Oliver Stone did the same thing with 9/11. And he did the movie which sort of mythologizes and canonizes what happened during 9/11. This is why we need to just take our middle finger to Hollywood and just say, fuck you. Because, number one, they are involved in this global Hegelian dialectic. And they're one of the things that Anthony Sutton says, and this, you've got to listen to this. This guy was on the inside. He was on the inside of academia, and he was basically, Stanford published his book about Skull and Bones. And they said, don't do it again. We don't do that. It's because they have an agenda. And the agenda is to popularize a global system, whether it's diversity, multiculturalism, the New World Order, the New Age, whatever it is. That is the system that they want to bring us into. Now, Sutton talks about how they created both fascism and socialism, or communism. And I believe that they had both models going on to tangle with one another. That Hitler was, really brought to power by Brown Brothers, Berman, by Ford, by a number of multinational and globalist forces. Because without them, there is no Hitler. There is no Third Reich. There's no money. There's no investment in the war machine. And they did the same thing with the Soviet Union. The entire overthrow of Nicholas and the purging of Nicholas and Alexandria and the bloodline and everything that exists, it was all run out of New York. And it was through the Rothschilds. And they were running both programs. That's what Sutton talks about. Now, what we've had for a number of years is we've had that phony left-right dialectic. John McCain, the Maverick, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, all these people, right? They're supposed to stand for these quote-unquote Republican conservative ideals. And on the other side, you have the Barney Franks and Chuck Schumers and Elizabeth Warrens. and they're just, mouthpieces barking at each other. But they're really doing the same thing. I really believe Trump is different. Now, it might be just another escalation of this Hegelian dialectic where they're promoting this kind of one world order, this one world experience, and Trump is playing just an elevated role. I don't think so, though. I keep coming back to that press conference yesterday where the guy goes off the res. He totally goes off the res. And you know what else he said? He basically, he called out Big Pharma. He called them out in that press conference, and whether it was Glaxo, Merck, Eli, Lilly, the stocks fell. Trump speaks, and stocks rise and fall now when he speaks. It's amazing to watch. Overnight, their stocks tumbled because he was talking about how expensive our medical care has become. Wow. Trump is an anti-vaxxer. Not a lot of people know this. Not a lot of people know this. I think it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds with him and all these corporate whores who are horny to pass the over 300 vaccines they've got lined up for our children and us. Let's see what Trump does with that. And let's see how Trump is pissing people off. He is in the crosshairs. I don't think he is. Now, they may try to mold him into this rising and raging dialectic. It's kind of like my blood pressure 2 days ago. This is going to another level, which is why I was not around. I was hospitalized on Wednesday because my blood pressure was through the freaking roof. And there's a reason for that. I don't want to get into that. But I had firsthand experience being in a hospital for 24 hours. I haven't been in a hospital like that for a long time. Overnight. I had a mishap with my back in 2006. But I hadn't done an overnight. I had not been in emergency like that. Like it was. And when I was there, the door was open, and they kept wheeling people in who looked like they were 80 years and over. I mean, you could hear them struggling to breathe, and the croaky old voices, and like these people are getting there. Yeah, they may not leave, or when they go back, they'll go back, and maybe they'll come back. I mean, they are on their way out. And I was just here I am. I'm with a bunch of people on their way out. It was bizarre to watch, and I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. There's just got to be a better way to get these people to the next place where they're going. We haven't figured that one out yet. I'm not sure. I'm not because I'm not a huge Kevorkian guy. I think you can use death panels, and they can be just incredibly ugly. Next thing you know, it's a slippery slope. Well, this person's got this, and this person, they're never going to come back. Oh, this person's disabled. Let's just break that. Yeah, they're never going to be productive. Why put a drag on the system? And yet I understand the drag on the system. I get it. From an economical point of view, I get it. In the last version of this show, which happened already this morning, which you didn't hear, unless you called in and listened, which one person did. I talked about the Emanuel brothers. Zeke, Ari, and all three of them very, very successful. One, a very successful Hollywood agent who is connected to Trump, by the way. I think Ari Emanuel helped get The Apprentice launched. So Trump has connections with these people. He has connections with them. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, part of the early phase of the Obama administration. Missing the finger. Zeke Emanuel helped write Obamacare. And there's some incredibly fascist elements to Obamacare. Some people know this, and I talked about this on the first version of the show. Their parents were part of the Ergen gang, who were part of the quote-unquote liberation and the repatriation of Israel They were part of the group that planted the bomb at the King David Hotel, which facilitated the exchange of mandate Palestine to the nation state of Israel. Their parents played a role in this. They were gang members. Life is weird, huh? Strange. Very strange. Anyway, Zeke Emanuel wrote Obamacare, and part of Obamacare was these death panels where at some point people get too old and then you phase them out. It's such a tricky question from a morality and mortality standpoint. I mean, I saw my father go through basically 6 months of hell, from September of 2009 to March 2010. I saw him degrade. I saw him, get to a point where his medical provider was completely screwed him over, and I'm convinced that they were literally managing him out. And I've talked to other people who were members of this provider, and they have said essentially the same thing, that they watched their parents literally get managed out by their care or lack thereof, or the care that seemed to tilt them into this, exit strategy. And I saw it. It was not pretty. And I saw my father, he asked me to basically assist him in leaving. That's how bad it was. And eventually it happened. I don't have an answer for this. I really don't. I think if there is some level of consent from a person, and there's really kind of clearly it'd be great. It'd be great if we were so spiritually aligned and attuned that we could just have a prayerful moment and just say, I'm tired, I'm ready, please, take me to my next place, wherever it is, and I'm not going to be invested in it. I hope it's a higher place. I hope I don't have to do too much heavy lifting on the other side and face too many shadows. But if I have to, I have to. Take me to the Bardo that I'm supposed to be, and I'll deal with it. Or don't take me to the Soul Recycling Center where you're tricking me into coming back here and being a battery once again for some other consciousness that's conjured up this reality just to feed off of us. Don't really want to go there. Take me to the higher place. That's where I want to go. Get me there. And I'll release and surrender. It's in your hands. And 72 hours later, something happens, boom, gone. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? That we were so conscious at those moments of time where we could commune and we could just basically go to sleep and they say, yeah, you get it, you turned it over, good, gone, see you later. It doesn't happen that way. So many people have such long and prolonged end games. I've talked to people that have parents, 5, 6 years of Alzheimer's, which apparently might actually be mad cow. Very similar kinds of symptoms. Look it up. But you're dealing with somebody who's degrading for 5, 6 years. I mean, that's terrible. The toll it takes. I mean, there's a spiritual lesson in there. Compassion, surrender, letting go, whatever. There's plenty of spiritual context inside of that experience. But does it have to go on for 5 or 6 years? Don't you know at some point where you get your lesson? I mean, is there some point of diminishing return? And all of a sudden everybody just wants, dad or mom to, peacefully transition and not be this kind of, drag on the system in life. You've made your peace. You've done what you needed to do. At what point is there any more? In those instances, there's got to be a solution. And it's difficult to give people the power of God in situations like that. You know, but we do with our pets. We have to play God with our pets, don't we? I mean, how many times have we had to say goodbye to an animal that we dearly love because there's a point of no return. And so we play God in those instances, and it's a lesser life form, theoretically, and yet they have the same emotional impact as a person. I mean, if you really bond with a pet, you're bonding with a member of it's like losing a member of the family. I mean, there are people that are very distraught and times don't get over their pets. But the difference is that you go out and get another pet. And you get into the realm of unconditional love. There's a movie coming out. This is interesting. It's about reincarnation and dogs. And a dog keeps coming back in the form. I just saw the trailer for it. I think it looks interesting. I don't know. We're talking about it, right? By the way, I think my son was my dog in this recent lifetime. I really do. I think my son was my dog. Because all he wants to do is play with balls, jump in water, and jump in water. That's it. Play with balls and jump in water. That's my son. About a week ago, we were driving down the road. This was funny. This was New Year's Day. And he rolled the window down in the car. And he said, "I just like to stick my head out the window and feel the breeze." I'm like, if you're not my dog, I don't know who you are. Anyway, it was an interesting moment. But it's tough, man. It is a tough moral question. And I was staring it down yesterday in the hospital. I don't have an answer for it. I really don't. I really, really don't. Because some people, I think, could actually play a very humane, compassionate, and almost divine and sacred role in the act of managing somebody out or giving them relief so they can move on because they're never coming back. I think some people could play a powerful. I mean, maybe there's actually kind of a new emerging field where somebody does that, and they get religious training, and they get medical training, and it is a very, I guess it's like hospice, but it would be something more specific than that. These people would be held in high regard because of what they have to do. But there's, again, this kind of slippery slope where all of a sudden, geez, let's just, you keep the levels of what it takes to leave keep getting lowered because that would happen. And the next thing you know, we're doing 30 at a time. They're all in a room together. And somebody's just walking around and blessing each table, and they've got pretty pictures up on the screen. Go watch Soylent Green. There's a great scene where Edward G. Robinson gets managed out. He basically signs up, and he drinks like this hemlock, and he goes into this wonderful kind of place where he sees beautiful visions thrown up on a screen, and he's just ecstatic. Like this is what he's leaving with, and he knows he's just going to close his eyes and go. And then as soon as that's over, they put his body on a conveyor belt, and he's off to the Soylent Green plant. It's harsh, man. I tell you, the 70s, some amazing movies and predictive programming in the 70s. Anyway, that was my experience, and I'm back and doing my best to control my rampant blood pressure. And I get excited. I get passionate about what I do. What was really interesting is I was supposed to go to Boulder and do another. Right now, like today, I'd be heading back. Would have been yesterday. I would have been with Regina and doing another show, but we didn't do it. And it was really interesting because I thought that, a lot of times I get a sense as to what the trip is going to be like because there are like energies and forces that seem to gather before I go. And I couldn't feel anything about this trip. And Regina and I had a great talk. We always talk before I go out there. And it's really, I'd love to just record the talks. And we did, and we had a great talk, and she got tons of notes. But I couldn't feel anything, and I went to deal with like a cluster headache. And the next thing I know, they're calling an ambulance for me. And I didn't take the ambulance. I drove myself to the hospital. And spent the night there, did all kinds of tests and stuff. It was really a trip, a total trip. And I was looking at my chart from an astrological perspective. Mars in Pisces. Hello, where is it? It's the bottom of my chart, 4th house, and getting ready to oppose my sun in Virgo. In fact, it is in opposition. It's wide opposition. So hey, guess what? Pisces, the 12th house, became my 4th house for a night. Got to hang out in the 12th house, 4th house. I also have transiting true node in my relocated chart here in Austin, which means my true node is going through my relocated 12th house, which I'm not crazy about. I love my true node relocated to my 1st house, transiting. Boy, that was great. 12th house, nah, not so crazy about. In my natal chart, it's up in my 9th house. I don't mind that so much. I like that. Maybe I'll publish a book during this time. Hopefully I won't publish it in prison. That would suck, wouldn't it? Let's hope that this is the only 12th house institutional experience I get over the next 2 years, essentially. Right? This is how I feel about it. But it was an interesting trip and brought up a lot of stuff, a lot of memories. And I want to thank the people from Seton Hospital. It's a Catholic hospital. Crosses were everywhere. I want to thank them for their kindness. Very compassionate people. Super compassionate. And the good care that they took care, that they shared with me and took care of me with. But we are in different times. The other thing I talked about in the first version of the show was this notion of where we are kind of historically. And as we look at and disassemble, again, we've got to go back to Anthony Sutton and his model of this internationalism, this globalism, because really what it amounts to are a handful of people that are in power, in positions of power, that are quote unquote elite, and they're not a lot of them. But what they've done over the course of the last 50 years since the death of Kennedy is they have inculcated large numbers of people into their ideological framework through education. So essentially what they've done is they've stolen people's ideas. They've stolen their, I wouldn't say they've stolen their ideals. They've replaced their ideals. I wouldn't say they've stolen their ideas. They've replaced their ideas. What if you, and I talked about this on the last show that I did, which was on Monday. What if you thought that you were tapping into the truth, right? What if you were given doctrine that you thought was the Rosetta Stone? This is what happens when you're young, right? You get turned on to things like socialism, communism, equity, fairness, balance, all those things. I mean, you're on fire with it when you're young. You're prime. You know, when I was 16 years old, I was screaming anarchy in the UK. It was at a vibrational match with my endocrine system and my hormones, totally. But you get this thing that you think is truth, and all it really is an indoctrination into this global system. And this is what Sutton talks about. He talks about education, how education was hijacked. We are not taught to think for ourselves. We are not taught to question, to really question what we're being given. I hope people question the shit out of me. I hope they do. I hope they don't think that just because, you know, I believe that I know what I'm talking about, or have dissected some things and ran them through my system, my filters, and come up with my synthesis, that this is the truth. Think it through. Resonate with it. I'm not always right, but I have been right a fair amount of times because I have a system and a process that I work with. It's what I do. It's important to me in this lifetime, but I'm not always right. But education does not promote that. Education does not promote questioning. Now, they promote questioning in a different kind of way. And what they do is they hijack the process. I am a young white American male, and I'm going and what is this? Okay. I'm a white American male, and I'm going to question my privilege because that is the type of questioning that they want to promote. I want to question my heterosexuality. I want to question this notion of family. I want to question all of these things because these are the types of questions or the line of questioning that's being promoted. If you question those things, you will be promoted. I swear, if I went out there and I all of a sudden said, oh, I was a truther and I was pro-America and I was pro this and pro that, and I've done an about face, and I realize the egregious errors of my ways, and I'm really now convinced, totally convinced that I am really at the apex of white privilege, and I was this repentant kind of individual. I guarantee you, I'd have a book deal, I'd have a radio show that we picked up, I'd have I'd be on the talk show circuit. Robert, can you tell us when that moment occurred? When you realized that you were a privileged white male and that everything that you've been building over the last 10 years of your life went into a complete 180? That is so fascinating. And it took so much strength and so much courage and so much vulnerability. I'd sit there, it was when I was in the hospital and I was there and I was there having this moment where my blood pressure was so high. It was so high I realized that the reason it was so high was because I was fighting this part of myself. This part of myself which was really, I was really just a liberal and a progressive and a humanitarian deep down inside. And once I was able to let go of it all, I was able to lower my blood pressure and realize that I was just a piece of shit. And now I had to rebuild myself and come over to this side that was waiting to hug me and give me a hug. Because really all I wanted was a hug. Boy, I'd be promoted like tomorrow. It's not what's going to happen, though. It's not what's going to happen. But this is what Sutton talks about. And you step outside of the box and you are done. Done. That's why Hollywood has this secret society of people who are conservative. Because they will get blacklisted and blackballed and run out of town. Well, maybe it's time to run Hollywood out of town. I think the days, I was talking with Regina, and one of the things we talked about was the end of the New Age movement. The New Age movement's over. It's over. We went, and there's some great things in the New Age movement. It's done. Conspiracy times, conspiracy movement, that's over. That's over too. We're beyond New Age. We're beyond conspiracy now. And we are in a different kind of place. And it is new, and we don't have a definition for it. And we're taking bits and pieces. We're taking bits and pieces of the conspiracy world, the truth world. We're taking bits and pieces of the New Age world. We're going back in time and realizing, hey, maybe there's something pretty interesting about this Christian piece that we've just kind of kicked to the curb. And maybe there's something here that we theoretically need to resurrect. There's a new syncretism that's coming. There's a new syncretism that's coming. And again, what they'll do is they'll try to create a new syncretism that might be this new world faith or the faith of the new world order, whatever that is. New Age is dead. Regina and I talked about that. Conspiracy theory, pretty much dead, gone. We are really in a place of redefining who we are, what it means to be human, how to have a relationship with the truth, how to have a relationship with the infinite and the divine that is real, living, breathing from moment to moment. Trump is a disruptor. He is a disruptor. I don't think, unless, again, they want to boil this thing up to new levels of the Hegelian dialectic, I don't think he's part of the script. After what I saw yesterday, that was not scripted. Anything but. And I can't wait to see the next 4 years. A lot of people say, Trump is not only unqualified, and Colin Cowherd was talking about this. I was watching him yesterday. And he said, Trump's a businessman. Yes, he's a businessman. We have been involved in politics. Politics does not work. It doesn't work. Regime change doesn't work. Backroom deals do not work. Pork does not work. Going from K Street to the White House, back to K Street, to the richest, bar none, the richest area in the country, which probably makes it close to the world, is within a 5-mile radius of the White House. Because that's where the most money's been made over the course. It's not Silicon Valley, it's within a 5-mile radius of the White House. Richest area in the country. We're in exciting times, and I want to see what happens. I want to be here. I want to live through it. I want to be a part of it, and I want to continue to do this at a higher level in 2017. For me, it's exciting, and I want people to unlock their voices. The left has no problem with unlocking their voices, and it's becoming a shrill act. I want other people. I want people that are underrepresented. I want people to be able to untie their tongues and to do so in a way where they feel empowered and they feel that they can have a voice. That's my goal for 2017. Thank you for letting me get back on. The first show didn't work out as well as I would like it to. I'll be back tomorrow, okay? So you know the drill. Use your head and discern what's real. Your heart to step into what's possible. Robert Phoenix, thanks for topping into 15 Minutes of Flame. Have a fantastic day.
Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Geico's been around for more than 75 years, back when they were using Morse code. Sorry, that's just my sense of humor. What's more, with Geico you get 24/7 access to licensed agents on the app, online, or over the phone, so you can talk to them at night or in the morning. So forevermore, just know that no other auto insurer has more than Geico. More power to you. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Get a fresh start for the new year with help from your friendly neighborhood Randall's. Resolve to eat better and shop smart with great deals and everyday low prices on healthy favorites, good for you and your budget. Shop with your Remarkable card and get fresh, all-natural boneless pork loin halves, just $1.69 a pound. And 16-ounce packages of fresh strawberries or 6-ounce packages of blackberries, only $1.99 each. Fresher selections, smarter choices, healthier starts. Randall's, proudly serving Texas families since 1966.